Hello, I'm Katie Knight, and this is Story Time with Deep Dish. Hello.
Hello, hello.
How are you?
Very good.
Okay, we're going to get straight into the stories. Okay, so the first story that I would like to know is, what are your first memories from your early days of New York?
Well, shortly after Sharam and I met, we used to go up to, because I think you had a car and I didn't, or you had a better
Mostly
car.
I had a car, he didn't, yeah.
Yeah, and we would ride up to New York from Washington, D.C. just to go to like Sound Factory Bar, NASA, Limelight, a lot of the clubs that were, in that period of time, like, quintessential like New York, nightlife venues. We would go there and we wouldn't have a hotel room booked because we couldn't afford it. And so we would kind of, whenever we would get tired on the way up or on the way back to D.C., we would just sleep in the car and have these like incremental sleep moments, on the journey there and back.
How long was the journey?
The journey, it was like 3.5, 4 hours each way. Okay. So it wasn't long, but I think it added to the experience.
We used to listen to Glenn Fisher. I think it was, I forgot the name of the station. Once you get to like New Jersey Turnpike, exit 7 or 8, you pick up New York stations, radio stations. So we immediately switched to that. And, it would be like some DJ playing dance music. At that point, where we were in D.C., you couldn't get a lot of, the radio stations didn't play dance music at all. And you have to find like some random station, like 3 a.m. But New York was like a hotbed of dance music. So the mix shows, Glenn Fisher especially, was like the one that we used to like, drive to New York. Oh man, this is the latest music we're listening to by whoever, And it was super exciting.
And what year was that?
This was like 91, 92.
91, 92.
Yeah.
And so when you were traveling to New York, was it for gigs that you were playing, or were you going to a party?
No.
We weren't playing anywhere.
We actually, this is all pre-Deep Dish.
Okay,
so we met and then decided to work together. And before we even released our first record, we were making trips to New York just to kind of be surrounded by all the talent.
Or buy vinyl, because record stores in New York were like amazing. So we would go and visit all these record stores, Vinyl Mania.
Yeah.
I was on Bleecker, I think it was. That's where it was.
Yeah, this is all
Village.
Pre-internet. Like, if you didn't have the physical record, you didn't have the song. So, and New York had the best record shops.
And they would have the promos. Some labels would drop like 50 promos to the record store. If you happen to be there, you get it,
And could you not find them records in DC at the time?
We had a record store in DC.
Them, yeah, but not everything.
We had a record store in DC that was great, but we'd go to New York and there'd be like a lot of record stores. And back then you walk into a record store and after so many trips to New York record stores, like some of the salesmen there like recognized this, and we'd walk in, they'd hand us like a big stack. Oh, you need this, you need this, you need this. And so we felt, kind of connected to what was happening, and we would get like, those early promos, and take it back to DC and like proud, puppies and play them wherever we could.
So who were you going to see when you were going to New York? Who were you going to see play?
At the time, we weren't going to see anyone. We would go to listen to like radio stations and wherever we could go. So there was this thing called, I think it was called New Music Conference, where the industry used to go to, and we kind of like registered. I don't think we even registered, we just went, because we didn't have the money to register for that. So we just went and kind of met people and talked to people, sort of try to get a lay of the land. I think one of the times was this New Music Conference in New York. That everybody, all these DJs, sort of like Miami Conference, all these DJs were playing, and we're trying to get into Limelight, and I think it was Keoki was playing. It was a Disco 2000 night. It was like a big night, and we couldn't get in. They wouldn't let us in. I don't know why we couldn't get in. I don't remember what the premise was at the time, but they're like, you can't get in. And somebody was walking, and they're like, there's another club right close by. So you come out in Limelight, I think it was like 6th Avenue, I'm not sure, but like you make a right, and you go, and then there was another club there. It turned out to be the club that changed our lives. It was Sound Factory Bar. So we literally walked, we couldn't get in there, and we walk in, and they have like rope lights, and here we see like David Morales, like Frankie Knuckles. Like, we're like, holy shit, we're here. This is it. This is the spot. And somehow we worked our way in, and just like, it was like over. We came back, we're making house music.
Really?
Yeah.
Had we gone to Disco 2000, I think we would have made techno music.
Yeah, and everything was on flyers. There was no internet, you know. Like, we'd read about certain parties in magazines, like dance music magazines, or see the flyers, you know, on the streets, or the posters on the walls. And then we'd be like, oh my God, like, look who's playing, we got to go here or here.
So it's crazy. If you'd have gone to one club instead of the other, you could probably be doing
because
something
that night
totally different.
transformed that. Like, we came out like zombies. Like, oh, we gotta go make this music, you know.
Yeah,
and
it was our first time. Yeah, it was our first time going to New York clubs, and we were seeing and very close to like all these DJs that we idolized, like that we would read about in magazines, or we had their records. We were playing their remixes, and here they were. You know, they were playing at all the clubs in New York.
Did you kind of feel starstruck when you saw them?
Oh yeah, totally.
Time, yeah.
Totally. Like,
And is it weird that now you will know a lot of these people?
No, like 2 years later, like it was like no more than 2 or maybe less than 3 years later, same situation. We go to Sound Factory bar, and we walk in, and Frankie Knuckles is playing. He's playing one of our records called DC Depressed, and here's a bass line coming out of. Like, we're like, holy shit, this is crazy that he's playing our record. So it was like sort of full circle for us at that time. Like 2 years ago, we just starstruck and happy to be here, to be let in. And now we walk in and they're playing our record.
Yeah.
Frankie Knuckles, of all people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after that night, you go back to DC, sleep in the car, go back to DC, and had you already decided that you were going to do something together at that point?
We did decide that we would make music together, and I think we were going to New York to learn as much as we could about, you know, how everybody was DJing, what they were playing. We were basically taking in as many influences as we could from as many DJs that we could see, and then coming back to DC and wanting to recreate, you know, what we felt in New York on record. And so, you know, somehow we succeeded in gaining, you know, their attention, you know, with the early releases. And after a while, they started to recognize us, and then they started to play our music. So we were kind of dreaming about this moment that we would meet them, become friends with them, and then actually hear them play our music, and all of it kind of played out, you know, over just a few years.
And had you already decided on the name Deep Dish, or was there other names that were going to come before that?
I mean, we used to, when we started working in the studio, we would just order Domino's pizza, deep dish pizza all the time. And we had a love for deep house. So it was one of the names that we could have we sort of threw around initially as a joke, but they kind of like, actually, this might be a good name. Was Deep Dish. It was like our love of deep house, our love of pizza, mixed together.
Combined. So really now, when you go back to New York and play, do you kind of have that gratitude towards it as the place that made you become what you are now?
I mean, every time, if I'm driving, or whether you fly in or you drive in, as soon as I see the skyscrapers, it's like I go right back to that moment. Like, I used to do this, we used to do it together. And it just like, it never fails. You're always like, wow, I'm back in New York. You're like, it's just this
And it's only
aura.
when you drive in and you see the skyline, then you're transported right back to that early period.
Like exit 7, exit 8 always is special for me, because that's when the radio stations started coming in. You could start listening. Man, I'm listening to New York, you know?
Yeah. I guess it's kind of a similar thing as like when you land in Ibiza and you turn the radio on and everyone's listening to dance music on the radio, because you wouldn't ever land at Gatwick and put dance music on. It's a different kind of feeling.
Or when you drive out of the airport and you see all the billboards.
Yeah.
Then you're like, oh my God, look at this.
What's going on? Yeah.
So that moment when you saw Frankie Knuckles play your track, did that kind of feel like a first moment where you thought, you know, this is happening?
This could be a career.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of them. I mean, we obviously ended up doing a lot in New York. You know, we ended up getting invited and actually DJing. We played all the clubs that we went to and looked up to. We actually ended up playing in them, like the Tunnel, Sound Factory Bar, Sound Factory, which then became Twilo. Central Fly,
Vinyl, Cielo, Output, you know. There were so many amazing clubs.
Over the years, yeah. There've been so many. It was that big one, Life? No. There was one
Maybe.
that was huge. It was kind of like Midtown. There was a club. It was called Life, I think. I'll never forget it. We walk into this club. It was Club USA.
Club USA.
Club USA. And we walk in, and there was a record at the time. It was on White Label, and it was big. It was called Lonely. Lonely, da 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 da, lonely. And we walk in, and this is like we've already made it, right? But we're still like soaking all this stuff in. You walk in, and this music is coming out like, holy shit. Like this is, so like only few places in the world you get that feeling. Miami, going to space is one when like Tenaglia was playing. Yeah. That was one of those are the only few places you get that moment. Like Carl Cox, like Mondays or Sundays at Ibiza, like at space. You walk in and he's playing this crazy, whatever it is he's playing, you're just like immediately hit by it.
Yeah.
So it was like, I remember that Club USA.
Yeah, and Danny Tenaglia became sort of like, he took us under his wing, like, you know, became our mentor, and we would drive up to the city and listen to his marathon sets. You know, sometimes he'd play till like noon or 3 p.m. in the afternoon, and we'd be there for the whole journey, and then with no hotel room have to, you know, muster up the energy to drive back to Washington, D.C. And we were coming back like, you know, excited, you know, kids.
When you listen to Danny play now, do you still get that same excitement?
All the time. After hour like 10 or 11, that's when he kicks into that, you know, after hour Danny kind of vibe that we love.
Are there any other artists that you still get that feeling with?
I think when I listen to Morales or Louie Vega and listen to like their DJ style, we still feel that, I don't know, takes us back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was, for a while, like we used to go like also to, there was this other club, Palladium. Junior Vasquez used to play there. It was like 10,000, I don't know, 10,000 people. You go into like a sea of people. It's like, what is this place? Massive. And Junior's doing his thing. You're like, wow, it's crazy. Actually, I remember we walked in, and he played, I think he was playing Sandy B. or something like that. And we wanted to go thank him. We wanted to say something. Oh, no, I mean, he did it. He played it, and we were like blown away that he played the record. And then I ran into him somewhere, maybe that night or sometime other time, and I went up to him to say thank you, and he was such a jerk. He was like, oh, I don't want to talk to you. Like, I'm like, I wanted to say thank you. He's like, no. Like, what's wrong with this guy?
He thought you were harassing him, probably.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, I mean, I know how it is with, like, you know, with your thing, other people approach you. But I was like, man, you know, like, Tenaglia is so nice. Why is this guy like this?
Did you have that kind of choice of clubbing in DC? Is that why, were you going to New York because there was a lot more happening there? What was the scene like back at home at that time? There
was definitely more venues in New York. There was more happening, but DC, like, to this day, that period of time in DC nightlife was the best. The best parties we had were on Mondays, like Thursdays and Sundays, you know, and then you had the Friday and Saturday crowds that would go out. That was like a separate thing. But nowadays, I mean, you go out on a Monday in DC, it's a ghost town. You know, so there was something going on back then that allowed for that to exist, you know.
Because I read in an interview once with the Washington Post that you said, Sharam, that you'd been kicked out from every club in DC.
Every other club.
Why?
It was. I don't think it was like getting. Well, because I think it was like there was a paper called City Paper, and we just did this interview, and we were like very frustrated at the time because our scene in DC, like, you had these pockets of really amazing things, but it wasn't cohesive. There's a lot of politics going on. They didn't let us play. They rejected us from everywhere almost. We had to really work our way to to be able to work in DC. And I was fortunate enough to be able to land a couple of really good residencies in some of the proper clubs in DC, and Ali did too. But overall, like, we felt like there was no support from our DC community, DC clubs. So when we kind of made it, we had this little small residency at this place called State of Union, like getting $150 a night, and we were so happy. And we already have international records. Still, we couldn't get a job in DC.
Wow.
This place became our like residency, our home, and became our like creative outlet. But City Paper at the time did an interview with us, I think, and we just kind of started like talking about all this frustration, and some of it came off as like, we're ragging on all these clubs. Some of the club owners were like, if you ever come back here, kick ass. But it was some of it was like misunderstood, but some of it was actual frustration that that the clubs were not supportive of what we're trying to do. We felt like we're onto something good here, and we needed the local support. The people wanted to, but the venues, they were not sold on the idea. And to their credit, it just wasn't a known thing in DC. You had super underground clubs. You have to go to like Baltimore, like to places like Paradox, or go to Tracks in DC to really get that music, And that's where, we were happy doing that. But then later on, we started getting a lot of love and support, like a lot. So it kind of like shifted.
Am I right in saying as well that with Yoshitoshi you had a physical shop? Was that in DC?
Yeah.
And what was that like at that time? What was the shop like, having your own shop?
I think it was our love of record stores. So we used to spend hours in records. We used to go to New York. There's a place called like Vinyl Mania, like we talked about earlier. There was a guy actually named Mark. I still remember him. And I always say, like, look at the wall. There's all these records from like Tribal or whatever label, Nervous, Tricky Rhythm. And I was like, man, one day we're going to get our record up there. And then Mark is like, well, you got it. It's up here. And but the feeling that we would get going to these record stores is something that, we had a record store called 12-inch, which was really good. But then they closed down, I think. And there was nothing like it anymore in DC. So we felt like it's our turn to sort of give back to the city. So we opened up a shop. We had it for like, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And did you guys used to spend a lot of time in there yourselves as well?
Yeah, I mean, before we would go on a tour, like after hours, we would go in there and spend 2-3 hours just, like we had an entire record store like after hours to ourselves. And that was a great period of time.
Yeah, I used to like price the records myself. I'm like, I didn't want to leave the place. I'm like organizing it with the staff, spend like late nights there, listen to records.
I read somewhere that you used to give DJ lessons in there as well.
DJ lessons?
Yeah.
I don't know where you heard that one.
We used
that
to...
was resident advisor, so...
we used to, probably something they made up. We used to host a lot of events where we would invite a guest DJ to come and play. We had drum and bass DJs. We had people like John Aquaviva and many others, like in dance music circles that were coming through. Whenever they were coming to DC, they would come to the shop, and we had like a DJ setup similar to this, and they would just get on and play a little set.
What do you think was your biggest ever pinch me moment in the 90s?
What moment?
Pinch me moment.
Pinch me moment.
Overall in the 90s or just...
Well, around that period, or from the early days anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that Sound Factory story was one of them with Frankie Knuckles. We also did a remix for 8 Ball for Joy Cardwell that also Frankie Knuckles was championing, and he came to DC, and we went to see him, and he had an acetate, like a test pressing of his album in a box set, but it was like a promo. He brought it for us and he signed it to us. We still have it in our studio. We're like, fucking Frankie Knuckles signing his album to us? This is,
yeah.
I mean, that was...
I have it framed, actually. But we had a lot of these moments where we would go visit, like we had dinner with Roger Sanchez, who's a very old friend, also a mentor of sorts for us back in the day. But we would go to Roger's studio and Danny's studio, and they would, we'd listen to their new remixes and special dubs that were unreleased. And before we left, they would give us like a DAT tape. We'd shyly ask if we could have this or this or this. And they would, kind of put together a little DAT not mix compilation, but like DAT compilation of like all the stuff that we were looking for that we couldn't find on the vinyl promos. And so we take that back and get acetates cut of those tracks, and we still have all of them. But those were all little mini pinch me moments.
When did you meet Roger for the first time, and where?
I actually don't remember where we met.
I mean, we were like huge. Like, we were both record collectors, so we had almost every record. Like Roger, Masters at Work, Frankie, Todd Terry. I mean, Todd Terry had like a gazillion records. You couldn't keep up with the guy. I mean, he was like putting out records left and right.
We'd meet them at the
we saw
annual
Roger. We saw Todd Terry at the
Drum Sheds the other
Drum
night.
Shed. Yeah, I mean, we see him.
Yeah, we would meet everybody at like the Winter Music Conference in Miami, and then we'd go to New York and see them play and find a way to get into the booth, and they'd see us. So it was always about like showing up and reminding them that we were there. And after a while, they started to connect, us two with like the records and the name Deep Dish, and eventually everything kind of snowballed into
So now, I'm just conscious of time here because we've only got about 10 minutes left. But fast forward a little bit. I know you guys have worked with so many people, and we've spoken about this before. I wanted to touch upon working with Madonna. How did that come about, and what was it like working with her?
That was working with Madonna. I think it was because we remixed music, and we heard through our lawyer, who was our manager at the time, that she loved the remix. And one day, out of the blue, he called both of us and said, "Are you guys around to take a call right now?" And we said, "Sure." Who with? And he said, "Trust me, you're going to want to take this call. I can't tell you who yet." And then the phone rang, and we, he got us on, and it was a call with Madonna. And he had already had a conversation with her about it, but she basically asked us if we would support her on the special event that she was putting together for her fans and for industry.
Wow.
Right before. It was kind of like a pre-tour event that she was doing,
the music tour,
as like a test gig, in New York for friends and family and industry. And Dolce & Gabbana were there doing like the outfits, and I remember, getting there from like a gig in Acapulco on no sleep. We had to do like a day of rehearsal. We were just doing a DJ set, but she wanted to see like what we were going to play, the timing of everything, like what song we were going to finish with, what song we're starting with, how long it takes to get from backstage to on stage and off.
Wow.
Very, very professional. And she was super cool, like super humble, and like very simple person to
and
be
we
in
got nominated for that remix, actually, a Grammy nomination. We didn't win it, but
you won a couple of years after for the
following
Dido.
year.
Well, that was 1 year after.
Yeah, a year after.
I think a year after.
So being nominated for a Grammy, what was it like finding out in that specific moment that you were Grammy nominated? I mean, that must have just been an unreal feeling.
Yeah, it was surreal.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't change us, or
Yeah.
it didn't change much, but like we were able to take our families to the award ceremony, and that was a great experience. I remember when we won like just after Coldplay or something, or just before Coldplay, and they were up for their debut album, and then we ended up coming off out of like the main arena.
We were late.
Going into
they announced our name. We weren't even there.
Yeah.
Stop.
But we went into the back, and we did like this maze of press. Like, you got to do all this press, and we did it with Coldplay.
No, really?
Yeah, we're all kind of like walking through it all together.
Wow.
They wouldn't remember us.
We went straight from the entrance to the maze, but because we weren't there when they
Our
announced our
publicist
name.
like,
You gotta
"You
go to the
won."
back.
Yeah.
You gotta go to the back.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That must have been so surreal doing that with them as well
time.
at that time.
Yeah.
Is there anybody that you guys have worked with or met and you felt very starstruck?
Oh, everyone.
Like
So
that
many.
we work with?
Yeah. I mean, I guess working with Madonna must have been a star.
Yeah, we typically didn't work with a lot of people like in the studios. Usually they would send us the parts, or we would collaborate. Stevie Nicks probably, yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Besides Madonna, I'd say Stevie
Stevie
Nicks.
Nicks, we were in the studio with her,
Yeah.
redoing the vocals to her like iconic record, which was like bizarre. Like, here we are
Yeah.
telling her how to sing her own song. which was an iconic record. And she was like, no, I want you guys to tell me how to, because I want to do it your way. It was just bizarre. Like, I'm sitting there like, what the hell's going on here?
That was probably one of the biggest pinch me moments
was
of our
she
entire
really
career.
Nice?
Absolutely.
Super nice. Telling us crazy stories. You know, cocaine field stories about
really
60s and 70s.
Wow.
And Fleetwood Mac and all their, crazy tour experiences. You know, her issues with Lindsey Buckingham, the history and all that stuff. Yeah.
So when you found out that you were going to work with her, what was that moment like?
Another crazy moment.
Yeah, those are like pinch moment. Like, what? Really?
Yeah.
Like, this is happening?
And we were in the studio, like literally 2 days after we heard from her that she absolutely loved it. We happened to have the weekend off, and she's like, can you come to LA this weekend? And can we record this thing? We're like, okay, yeah. So then it was 2 full days in the studio with her.
Wow.
So day one, obviously, we were really nervous, and but she was like very relaxed, and we felt relaxed with her. And then day 2, we actually could take in the moment and have fun with it, Wow. And I think you hear the results on the record. Like, it was a very fun record. It was an effortless record to kind of do with her. So.
It must have been crazy though, her saying to you, like, how should I do this?
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing about that record is the record came out, obviously a lot of people were like loving it, but then there was, I don't think it was like DJ Magazine or Mix Mag, one of these magazines, they used to do reviews. And they gave it like a shitty review. And they said, yeah, these guys, as much as they've accomplished, I'm just giving you the gist of it, paraphrasing, I guess. It's like, as much as they've accomplished, they've gone on and done a cover of the Corrs, because the Corrs had done a cover of Stevie Nicks record. And they've gone and done a cover of the Corrs record. Like, who wrote this? This is actual Stevie Nicks on the record that we work with. It's not a... He was like, what are you talking about? But, just such the...
Dance music
such is the industry,
Yeah. What about whilst you guys have been playing and somebody that's come into the booth, is there anybody that's come to the booth whilst you've been playing that you felt very starstruck by and then ended up partying with?
I mean, one time in Ibiza, we had, at the time, Beverly Hills 90210 was a big TV show, so Jason Priestley was at this Renaissance party in Ibiza, and Sharam was hanging with him. Like, sometimes we would take turns DJing, like half hour each, and Sharam came into the booth and said to me while I was playing, he's like, you're not going to believe who's up there and who's a fan of ours. I'm like, who? He's like, Jason Priestley. I'm like, what? And I didn't believe him, and I said, I don't believe you. And he's like, okay. So he went up and actually brought him into the DJ booth. And so we became friends with him for a few years.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's always cool to see, like, you kind of feel in like your own little bubble of dance music, but we realized as the years went by that, people are listening, people are listening to this music, and it's become obviously huge nowadays. Yeah. And so many people that you wouldn't even think about being your fans, but they are, so it's kind of like something that we come across a lot, and like, all these people like listen to our music when we were coming up, and they still do. So it's really cool. It's really awesome with the sort of arts kind of cross.
Totally. And tying that in with New York specifically, what's it like now going back to New York, to the city where everything started for you guys?
I think every time we go to New York, we're trying to create that magic feeling that we felt. So we don't know how we're going to do it. We want it to happen. So we're hoping, like, all those elements that have to come together that were a big part of like how all those clubs were designed and how the parties were put together. Like, we're wishing for that to kind of, spontaneously happen.
Yeah. And we always have something new. We always conscious to go out of our way to recreate those moments, like you said, but we have these sort of classic records, classic New York records that we try to incorporate into our sets, or like think about those records as we're, playing. So it's always really special when you play New York. Like, nothing else is like it.
Is there anything from the 90s DNA that is non-negotiable in the deep dish sound today?
Oh, that's a tough question. because I don't even know what the DNA is to make it negotiable or non-negotiable.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever had a DNA. I think we're...
Yeah, a lot of people think we have a sound. We actually never think we have a sound. We always think we're just all over the place. But apparently we have a sound. So we're always actually arguing like we should have a more specific sound.
Because is this where the arguments come in?
Nowadays, everybody has a sound. Like everybody has a lane, you know. We've never, you know, he did the whole techno thing for a while. He still does, but, you know, he was in this specific lane, you know. Yeah. And Deep Dish was never in one lane. We're always like...
I think we were so a conundrum.
Yeah, we're inspired by techno people as much as the house people.
Yeah.
People couldn't put us in a neat little box.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why we're still...
Well, this weekend we're playing with Armin van Buuren, like...
Yeah.
You know, and last weekend we were at Hacienda, doing Hacienda like anniversary kind of party, like pure house to like kind of techno trance.
Yeah.
But we are able to do it because we actually spent the time to learn about all kinds of music and have it in our portfolio of songs that we listen to, we buy. But to us it's natural. Like it's just that's what we do.
Also back then in New York, like all the DJs we would listen to would incorporate all these different, you know, sounds into their and genres into their DJ sets. I remember the first time I heard the New Yorican Soul record, the Yellow track, on Nervous Records. It was Moby that played it, you know, at some underground party or after party in New York. So that's you know, that's what New York was like back in the day.
To wrap up this storytelling time with Deep Dish, do you have one last story, a favorite story that you've never told before?
From New York?
From New
It
York.
can be any time, it can be anything, but if it's New York, better.
Well, the funny one, so at the time, in the early 90s, I had a girlfriend in New York that we were broken up. And we used to go and sleep in the car in Weehawken, Hoboken, across the river. And after like a couple of nights, and he's like, fuck this, man. You can call her. We need to take a shower. So I'm like...
I was begging him to call her, yeah. So that we could use her apartment to like freshen up before the journey.
So, you know, and she was absolutely amazing. She was like, oh, great to hear from you guys. Da-da. And it was like probably like one of the best moments we've had because we're like, oh, we needed the shower.
You're like, sorry, we're not getting back together, but we are going to use your shower.
Yeah, you know, so we became like really good friends. But you know, like he was like, dude, you gotta call her.
Yeah. I remember one time.
She's like, I never want to see you ever again. What do you mean?
The one and only time before it became Twilo that we played Sound Factory, we were allowed to play from Junior's booth, and his booth was a 2-level apartment. The DJ booth was an apartment inside the venue.
What?
So you'd go in, it'd be like a living room, you know, kitchen.
Wow.
Restroom on the first floor, and then I think there was a spiral staircase that went up to the upper level, which also had a living room, bathroom, kitchen area, and then you'd open a door and you go out onto the mezzanine where all his records were kind of locked in a case, and then you were overlooking the dance floor.
Wow. What a booth.
When you finish, you turn around, you go into the apartment. So that was...
And you would sleep there?
He slept there. But we got some insight into how he was doing these marathon sets. He was playing sometimes for 18 hours, 24 hours. So
insane.
That's how he did it. There was literally an apartment.
Everything he needed.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you.